All right, thank you everybody for joining me. So for this week's movement tutorial, I wanted to look at the deadlift and just go over proper deadlift form and technique. The deadlift is nothing more than picking up something heavy up off of the ground and putting it back down. It's even in fact like a joke in the workout world. It's like I'm just gonna go pick up something heavy and put it down. But to do it properly with good form and technique is very, very challenging. In fact, the first time I saw the deadlift and I kind of was not my thing. It wasn't my realm. Again, like lifting weights and heavy weights and things wasn't my realm. You're going to hurt your back, all these things. But once I started doing it and learning proper form and proper technique, it's a fantastic exercise. But again, it needs to be done intelligently and correctly. For something as simple as just picking up something heavy off the ground, there are a lot of things to think about to do it properly, and a lot of cues that you want to be mindful of. So the deadlift is 100% absolutely something that I would spend a good amount of time learning about, experiencing with lighter weight, spending time there, really getting your form and reps down, then starting to increase the weight when you start getting comfortable. Well, that should go for everything, but really particularly the deadlift. So without further ado, let's just get into a few things. And the first thing I'm going to start off is to show you a dowel drill. But I'm sorry, before even that, when working with individuals, I do feel like the deadlift is different than the squat. A lot of people are used to squatting. So the deadlift is more about unlearning the squat and learning how to hip hinge instead of the kind of moving in like the up and down motion. But again, to kind of send the hips back and forward in a hip hinge. So that is an important one. And a lot of times people have issues learning the difference between the two, especially because they're so similar. And then the other thing is having the mobility to get into the proper deadlift setup form. A lot of times isn't there initially. I think sitting in a heels flat squat to the floor is a really nice, I would almost call it like a prerequisite for the mobility to get into the deadlift. Now it's more than needed, but will be very helpful. So just working on the passive squat will help the mobility of getting into the deadlift. Again, not needed, but would be nice to have ahead of time. So first thing I'm going to show you is a drill with this dowel. And I do feel like if you've never deadlifted before, this is where we should start. You want to start here and a bunch of reps, as this is going to give us our proper form and technique. And then we just have to add more once we get into actually lifting a bar up off of the ground. So I'm going to take a straight dowel. And the concept and the mindset here is that if I'm going to lift something very heavy off of the ground, my spine wants to be straight. That is the best anatomic position for my entire body to be able to take the weight of lifting something really heavy off the ground with a really stiff, rigid, straight spine. Now, we don't want the spine stiff and rigid throughout our entire life, but while in the act of lifting something heavy off the ground, performing the deadlift, we want our spine as straight and as stiff as we can get it. Just like the way that this stick and this dowel is, stiff and rigid and straight. So, I'm going to place the dowel on the small of my back, in fact, maybe even a little bit higher. And we have a natural curvature to the spine. That's where I like to place my hand. So I'm going to place my hand and grab the dowel in that natural curvature area right here. And notice the dowel is touching 3 areas of the spine. The dowel is touching the low back here, or the small of the back. There's the space where I'm holding it. It's now touching my mid back right here. Then there's space created for the neck, and then it is touching the back of the head. So as long as that dowel stays touching those 3 spots, I know that my spine is straight when I feel it in all those positions. All right, so I'm going to step to the wall, and I'm going to be about a foot length to a 1.5 foot distance. We're going to see in a moment our distance from the wall. And I'm going to try to hip hinge. The best cue that I have heard, the cue that really works for me, is imagine like you're bowing in Japan. So you're in another country, Asian culture, they bow. The first thing that happens, the chest goes down, the butt goes back when we bow. So think about bowing, again, like we're honoring somebody. So I'm going to bow and hinge at my hips. My hips are going to go back. My knees will not go forward. I'm just going to send my hips back. They touch the wall. I press my hips forward. I come back to standing. I send my hips back, tap, and I come back. Notice that the dowel does not leave any of those 3 contact points. I'm going to do it incorrectly to show you. My head lost contact, no good. My butt lost contact, no good. Space got created here on that second point, no good. All right? 3 points of contact. I should be able to hip hinge while maintaining 3 points of contact the entire time. All right? If you scoot your toes forward a little bit, you're going to have to just hip hinge a little bit further. And you want to just make sure it's in a comfortable position, not where you're hip hinging too much, but also we need to send the butt back. My knees are not moving forward, whereas if I were to perform, is that going to stay? If I were to perform a squat, immediately notice the knees moving forward beyond toes. In a hip hinge, the butt goes back. The knees do not move forward over top of toes. So that drill alone will teach us a lot about the form, and we're not even performing the deadlift yet, but we will in just a moment. I would recommend at least 100 repetitions before you start the first few of your deadlifting sessions. So maybe in the deadlifting sessions, we're taking 3 or 4 sessions, 5, to really, really learn. So maybe 100 before every single session. Again, this is about patterning the body so that the body is doing the right movement before it's under any load, before I even go to try and grab or touch the bar. All right? That, again, teaches us to keep our spine straight, teaches the hip hinge, feet flat to the floor, weights in the heels, all the good things. All right? Now I'm going to try to lift this bar up off of the ground. All right? I'm going to start with lightweight. These are 15 pounds on each side. A lot of times they have light weights that are very big for this reason, so that when we're deadlifting, the bar is higher up off of the ground, whereas if it was a little tiny weight, it would be lower to the ground. We have to reach down further. But again, it's not too much weight that we want to be able to start and to learn with this weight. Now, there are going to be definitely little things that you can cheat with when the weight is light. It's, again, this is our starting point. We want to learn here. When the weight gets heavier, it actually is going to feel better, in my opinion, because there's less things you can cheat. All right, less ways you can cheat. Maybe we'll talk about some of those in a moment. So the first thing I will say with this, actually, I'll roll it this way for a moment. This deadlift bar would be that when we reach touchdown for the bar, we want to first establish our correct stance. So there's there's a few ways, many ways of deadlifting, but the 2 that we'll look at are traditional versus sumo. So in a traditional stance, our feet would be directly underneath of our hips, and most likely feet are going to be straight forward, maybe the slightest, ever so slight turnout, but traditionally, typically straight forward. Whereas in a sumo stance, we would be considerably wider with the feet, and generally the feet are going to have a considerable more turnout. Now, the position has to feel comfortable for you in your body. I would say experiment with both. I personally prefer the sumo stance, but I feel like there are benefits with both, so try to get good with both of them, and again, explore both. Today we'll focus a little bit more on the sumo, but we'll talk about both as well. So if you are going with a traditional foot distance and stance, then when you reach down to grab the bar, your hands would be on the outsides of the shins. If you're going for a wider, more sumo style of lifting, deadlifting, then your hands would now go on the insides of the shins. So that is key of where you place the hands in relationship to your shins. Let's see. We'll set up a traditional to start. And then I'm going to reach down and I'll try to grab again either side here of the bar. Now, my goal, so I'm going to start to show you now. Well, one more thing I'll show you from this direction before I turn it is that we want to be equal distance. We want to grab the bar equally. So I have this white tape here. I'll know that if my right hand is on this exact spot on the white tape, my left hand wants to be in the exact spot on the other side of the white tape as well. So wherever you set up one hand, have the other hand be on the exact same spot on the bar. Will guarantee that we're lifting in the middle of the bar. So that is, again, important stuff. All right, so I'll come to the bar. I'm going to grab, I have, again, my feet traditional, about hip width distance apart. And right now, I'm going to set up my deadlift position. So first things first, I'm going to bring the weight into my heels, and I'll see if I can sit the butt back and down. And I want to imagine my spine feeling those 3 points of contact like they were on that dowel a moment ago. So if I grab the bar like this, because I patterned that move and drill so much, it feels wrong in my body, like the dowel would not be touching those 3 points of contact. I need to send the chest forward and pull the shoulders back, straightening out the spine as I sit the butt back and down. So this would be our initial position, holding the bar really, really strong. And I'm starting the process of pulling the bar into me, trying to break the bar into two pieces. So you're going to feel like your lats or the muscles under your armpits begin to get very active. Again, the weight is in the heels, and we want to sit the butt back and down. You should feel like you're teetering on the brink of falling backwards, but never falling backwards. The feet and toes can be down, but again, just more of the weight is in the heels. If this is my starting position, I'm going to try to pull my shoulders down and back. So I'm going to try to pull my blades together. If you're a yogi, you can think upward facing dog. Weights in the heels. I'm going to think about pushing my heels down into the ground so much that as a result, the bar comes up to me. At the top, I'm squeezing my glutes hard, and I'm trying to pull my shoulders back and my chest forward. Again, you should feel the lats. Now, I'm going to put this bar down. The first thing I'm going to do is think of that metaphor of bowing. So I'm going to send the butt back as the chest goes down. Boom, it taps down. That's our deadlift. I'm going to now bring the feet a little bit wider. Same approach, but more of a sumo stance. So I'll bring the feet a bit wider, and I'm going to grab again the exact same spot on the bar as I did last time. I'm going to sit the butt back and down. All right, so I'm going to go over a checklist in my mind. It's very important when you start deadlifting, not even start deadlifting, just period, deadlifting, when you deadlift, that you have that checklist in your mind. And every time you go and grab that bar, you go over the cues in your mind of the checklist. So start to develop that checklist for yourself. First things first. Are my feet equal distance from one another in relationship to the bar? So again, here's my white tape. I'm about equal distance between, well, this white tape goes a little longer, but from here, my shin starts about equal distance from the start of the tape. I'm going to bring my hands and grab, again, the exact same spot here on the bar, so I'm equal. All right. Now, the weight is in my heels. All right. I'm going to sit the butt back and down. Starting to feel the hamstrings already under load before even lifting it. So it should start to feel almost like a rubber band under tension before it gets released. When you sit the butt back and down, you should start to feel tension being created in hamstrings, maybe in glutes. So again, we're going to sit that butt back and down. All right, we've gone over a number of things already. We have a few more things to move through. Chest forward, shoulders back. I'm going to show it to you one more time. Chest forward, shoulders back. Chest forward, shoulders back. It's like upward facing dog in yoga. Chest forward, shoulders back. Sit the butt down. Straighten out the spine as best as you can. Last thing, inhale, fill the belly with breath. Slow exhale, out perhaps through the teeth. Heels press into the ground, lock out at the top. At the top, the hips are thrusted forward. My shoulders are pulling back. I'm trying to squeeze my blades together. Glutes squeezing. Now I'm going to bow. That's my cue. I'm going to send the butt back as the hips go forward. Eventually the bar touches down. That's our deadlift form. Now, the idea of inhaling and filling the belly with breath is very, very important. In fact, all of these things are important stuff and are worth really, really, again, taking your time with and going slowly. In one tutorial, there's no way I can cover absolutely everything. I'm going over, in my opinion, what are the things that will keep you safe and will allow you to effectively gain strength in your deadlift. Again, if you want to really, really, like you love deadlifting, and you want to go even further, you need more research and more talks, whether myself or with another trainer, specifics of the deadlift form. But the breath here in the belly is incredibly, incredibly important. We want to be able to breathe and create a little bit of inner abdominal pressure. Now, this is something we'd have to talk about more in depth, but again, trying to breathe into the walls of your belly. So inhale, fill the lungs at the bottom. Now, when you lift the weight, you can take a slow exhale, and perhaps it's through perched lips or through your teeth. So, inhale, fill the lungs. And then you can release your breath. Think of your breath being released as your power and force being released. You don't want to get rid of all your power in 1 second. You would want it to last maybe 3-4 seconds. So you can slowly exhale through perched lips or through your teeth to make your exhale last a little longer. So it would be, or it can be through the teeth. So we let the breath out on the way up slowly to help us create more force and more energy in performing our lift. Let's take a few and look from some different angles with maybe a little less talking. Sumo style. Reach down, grab equally here. Butt sits down, shoulders pull back, chest forward, weights in the heels. Push your heels down into the earth. Press the floor away from you. Get away from the floor. Glutes squeezing together at the top. Think like you have a walnut between your glutes. You're trying to crack the walnut and squeeze it. We don't want to be rounded forward here. We want to be chest forward, shoulders back. And now I'm going to send the butt back. Slowly lower down, lower down. The bar taps down. Success. All right. A few other things to talk about. You want this bar to stay as close to your body as you can. You do not want to perform a deadlift like this with the bar out in front of you. The closer the bar is to your body, the more anatomically, the less heavy it's going to be. You just don't want to lift something heavy out there. If we're going to keep our spine straight, we want that bar really close to our body. In fact, it can rub up against our shins and thighs on the way up and rub up against us on the way down. That's ensuring that the bar is as close to us as possible. And then the other thing I would like to say too with this deadlift is think of it not necessarily as you lifting the bar up to you. Think about you're pressing down into the floor with so much force and you're holding on to the bar. But because you push into the ground with so much force and you straighten out your legs, the bar happens to come up to you. So instead of thinking of it as lifting up off the ground, think about you're burying your feet into the floor. As a result, it comes up to you. All right, let's try a few more. Butt sits back and down, shoulder blades back, chest forward. Exhale. Slow on the way down. Form, form, form. Bar touches down. Nice. All right. I also would like to take the exhale on the way down as well. So sometimes I'll inhale here. Exhale on the way up. Inhale at the top again. And then exhale slowly on the way down. Nice. The breath will play much bigger role as the weight gets heavier. And again, you will not be able to cheat when the weight gets heavier. So that actually will help, I feel like, with a lot of the cues. For example, this is what I'll see a lot. Scrunching up of the shoulders. The shoulders should be back and down and packed. Once the weight's heavy, you won't be able to shrug with your shoulders at all. So again, that's just one little example of how we can kind of cheat a little bit if the weight is too light. So again, start this way, go over form, learn it, and then over time start to slowly add some weight little by little. All right? So I went through a lot of different cues there, a lot of things to think about. I feel like that's enough for the first session and at least to get you started. So with those cues moving forward, see if you can start to pattern the deadlift for yourself first using the dowel. Start with some light weight and these bigger, larger weights, but light. Again, they make them lighter for this on purpose. See if you can get that nice, good form and just go over form and just do it over and over and over again until, again, it gets patterned. If you wake up the next day and you have sore lower back like in the sacrum and it feels like the bones are being crushed, it's not a good sensation. Now you will use the extensor muscles of your spine though, so it's not uncommon to have sore back muscles, but primarily we're trying to, I feel, mostly glutes, hamstrings, but yes, you're going to feel back muscles as well. But I would say the key, if you remember only one thing while deadlifting, if that was the case, I would say the spine staying straight. That's the key. Don't round your spine, especially when it gets challenging. When it gets challenging and you go to lift that weight and it's not lifting very easily for you, your mind might say, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to round my spine. Not a good idea. Don't round the spine when deadlifting ever. Not a good idea. So if you want to hurt your back, lift heavy weight with a rounded spine. If you want to get stronger glutes, stronger back, try to lift with a straight spine. So that, I say, is the key. And then over time, please try to work on developing your hip hinge. All right? I think that's a lot of information to get you started. Please reach out. The deadlift is a fantastic movement. We just have to be intelligent about it and take our time in proper form. But again, it can be really, really a great, great, amazing movement, especially for the engine. So the glutes, the posterior chain, it is fantastic for building overall body strength. And another thing I will say too is I did quite a bit of deadlifting before I went on my last CDT through hike. And it was the only through hike that I had focused on deadlifting prior to doing. And I have to say, it was a noticeable difference in just my ability to handle the weight of my backpack that I had. When you're through hiking, you're wearing a 20 to 30 to sometimes 35 pound pack, depending on how much water you're carrying or food. The deadlift really, really helped my overall body strength, and it just allowed me to manage the weight of that big heavy pack on my back just better throughout everything. So there's one little example, but so many other benefits from the deadlift. So great, guys. If you have questions, comments, please feel free to reach out with any of those. Otherwise, happy deadlifting, but at the same time, be very, very smart and mindful about this. I would love to answer any questions. Again, if you have any, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, guys. Questions, comments, reach out. Otherwise, again, deadlifting, stick, dowel, lots of repetitions before we start diving into it. But let's get after it. All right. Peace, namaste. Later.